And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Officially opened in 1984, the Terraceview Lodge sits on the bench where our 300-bed military hospital used to be. When that land was intended to be privately sold following the war, several people fought to ensure they would be used for public citizens instead. On today's Open Connection, we open our archives to bring you this story from 1989.
A healthcare facility with an eye to the future. Along with the addition of the new 20-bed extended care wing comes an increase in the range and quality of care Terraceview is able to offer. Administrator Kathleen Delgatti calls it a multi-care facility, providing a wider range of care on a continuing basis. The idea is to create a non-institutional environment with a community atmosphere. Delgatti is proud of the growth she's seen at Terraceview, which she calls the Cadillac of healthcare facilities.
We have a beautiful site. We have motivated staff. We have so many rich resources. It's not the bricks of the building, but we have a wonderful physical design. We're just extremely fortunate that we have everything to work with. And it is the Cadillac. Look out the front to the south view. It doesn't get much better.
And she's right. If you didn't know better, this modern, aesthetically pleasing building could be mistaken for an urban condominium complex. Although the $1 million extended care wing is the most obvious sign of improvement at Terraceview, a number of other changes have taken place. Delgatti says the new wall colors and furniture are part of the plan to create a warm, healing environment.
We developed a multi-purpose educational room, meeting room. We also made a, quote, front room, another area to the south of the unit, which will be used. It's decorated quite elaborately, actually, but it can be used as much as your living room as an activity area for people.
Although never an unattractive environment, the new look at Terraceview is even more pleasing. The main lounge has been spruced up, and residents have new chairs to relax in. The dining room has been opened up by removing some of the heavy wooden beams, and a well-appointed activity room has been added. Everywhere the colors are soft and pleasing. Hanging fabric panels suspended from the high ceiling not only lend a designer's touch, they reduce the noise level in the common area. Outside, the patio and garden area have been noticeably improved thanks to a local landscaper. Rows of hanging baskets and colorful plants along with the freshly laid sod make it the perfect spot to relax in the afternoon sun. Residents with a green thumb have a spot to dig and plant, and there's also a garden for those confined to a wheelchair. The emphasis on aesthetics is also evident in the new extended care wing, where the wards are also decorated in pastel colors. The aim is to make the extended care unit as homey as possible, getting away from the typical sterile institutional feeling often found in such facilities. The lounge areas are airy and bright, offering residents a view of the grounds and gardens. The extended care wing will accommodate people who need care on a continuing basis, and that doesn't necessarily mean only the elderly.
We have a mandate to offer service to people 19 years over, and also we offer not only permanent residency, but we have a bed that people within the community can use 30 days a year. So we are institutional care, but we are also community-based. We cook the meals for Meals on Wheels as well, so there are functions other than just providing institutional care.
The new wing took 1 year to complete. It was funded by the provincial government under the auspices of the Kitimat-Stikine Regional District. And the Terrace Healthcare Society is the body charged with the ongoing responsibility of running Terraceview Lodge. Society Chairman David Lane says, although the new wing is a relatively small project, it is an important one.
It is of considerable significance in that the project was developed by a society that's responsible for acute care, intermediate care, and extended care. Normally, the projects such as this would be developed by a society whose sole responsibility would be an extended care or continuing care facility.
The new wing was originally slated for completion in early spring, but a number of factors pushed that date back. The project was also the subject of some controversy because a non-union firm was chosen for the job against the recommendation of the Healthcare Society. But in the end, everyone is pleased with the outcome.
I think we've all decided we don't believe in difficulties, we have issues. And we've had a few issues and little crinkles to work out, but it's been wonderful. Everyone has participated in the project staff, the community, the board. No one person did this. We all did it together. And like the theme of our extended care opening, we believe that we will and can make a difference.
With the new extended care wing ready to start receiving its new clients, the Terrace Healthcare Society has no intention of resting on its laurels. Plans are already underway for additional facilities and services.
I feel happy to see the grand opening and anxious to get on with the next project.
And what's the next project?
The next project will be a supportive housing project that will be built just to the east of where we're standing now.
We are hoping to provide supportive housing to people who require minimal assistance.
So it'll be sort of like, it'll be housing with some care.
That's right. Or we can offer services from the lodge, whether it's Meals on Wheels, a little bit of medical service, whatever the client would need. And as well, some of the residents feel we should have a chapel on the property. They're identifying some of what they would like to see. They want gardens. They want to live in community. It's just that simple. The more I work in continuing care, the more I believe that what we're trying to do is very simple. Give people quality of life, and that means that you live in community.
Terraceview also plans to develop an adult daycare service which will be in operation by 1991.
For people that would come here during the day and do activities, it will be a very meaningful program and service to people who are in their homes presently but need a bit more support. Maybe they need a little bit of occupational therapy. It looks really good.
The philosophy of community involvement at Terraceview was recognized by Health Minister Peter Dewick, who was on hand for the official opening of the extended care wing. Accompanied by Skeena MLA Dave Parker, Dewick gave the community a pat on the back.
It is an honor for me to come to a community where everyone sort of takes ownership of what they're doing. The difference between a community like this and making an announcement in a big city is the difference of participation. When you come to a smaller community, they take ownership. They say, this is ours, we've done it.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. In 1939, with wives taking care of the domestic economy while their husbands were fighting overseas, the federal government quickly established a national system of day nurseries to care for kids. Let us return to the archives to bring you this story from 1989.
Dual-income families are becoming the norm as couples try to beat the cost of living to afford a few luxuries, or in many cases, just to survive. In some families, the wife can't afford to stay home, but with the rising cost of childcare, some can barely afford to work. Today, we look at the childcare crisis in the Northwest. First of all, just finding a daycare to look after your children while you're at work can be a problem. The second problem, of course, is cost. Most licensed daycares in the Northwest charge $15 a day per child. That's about $300 a month, and more than many families can afford or are willing to pay. So instead, they choose unlicensed daycare, which can be cheaper because it's usually run in someone's home without trained staff and without government regulations. This is creating another problem, and a serious one for licensed daycare centers. As more and more parents choose unlicensed childcare, the demand for licensed centers drops, and this is forcing licensed childcare centers in the Northwest to close or operate at survival level. Because licensed centers must follow government regulations on child-to-staff ratio, staff training, and equipment quality, they can't afford to compete with unlicensed centers operating with no overhead and without the encumbrance of following someone else's rules. So licensed daycares feel they're being penalized and put out of business by taking the legal route. They want to know why the law isn't being enforced, as anyone taking care of more than 2 unrelated children is legally obliged to have a license. In charge of the licensing procedure is Skeena Community Healthcare Facility Licensing Officer Roseanne Handberg, and she says enforcement isn't her job.
Our focus at this time is promotion, education, encouraging, and enforcement, seeking a prosecution. It is possible to do that, but that is not what we're doing at this time. The public does not seem to be
Too concerned.
Well, they seem concerned, but they are not looking for prosecution at this time. Where it's hard for parents to find licensed spaces, and we're not in the business of shutting down daycare. We're in the business of promoting and encouraging quality care.
Encouragement isn't enough, says the supervisor of the Discovery Daycare in Terrace. Sharon Bromley feels everyone should have a license or no one should have to.
We feel like when we get licensed, we're under certain regulations. We feel like the people who aren't licensed should be licensed. The law is that if you're caring for more than 2 children, that you require a license. Okay, most people would then go ahead and get a family daycare license. So that might include this. It might include a fire inspection in their home, a safety inspection. You know, the public health inspector would come out to make sure the place is clean, the medicines are locked up, things like that. Liability insurance. If your child is injured while at that daycare, do you have any way of legally doing anything? Everything can be changed, but I don't see a lot of enforcement right now for people not meeting the regulations.
The Discovery Daycare is one of only 7 licensed daycare centers in Terrace. That means less than 100 children are in licensed centers. Having a license means following specific guidelines set out by the government. It could mean costly renovations, installing fire equipment, fencing off a garden or a play area. It could mean turning down the fridge and water temperatures to make the facility safer for children. It might mean providing nutritional snacks and approved play activities. The list goes on.
If a child doesn't eat a certain thing because of a religious belief, is that upheld in the center? Are the children treated fairly, treated with respect? Those things are all important, and we feel they're not met for even a quarter of the children in Terrace. It doesn't mean that every center that's licensed will be perfect. That's far from it. But at least means that somewhere along the line they've had to answer to someone for something. And we would like to see more children in licensed centers.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. In BC, the term license not required refers to a family childcare home that is not regulated, but it is permitted. Let us return to the archives with Roseanne Handberg.
Licensing Officer Roseanne Handberg is responsible for monitoring all healthcare facilities in the district, and she says she can't force people. All she can do is make recommendations.
Usually I start by making a phone call to the home where the care is being provided, and for the most part people are receptive, they're interested, usually have a lot of questions. I provide them with the package, send the package out to them, suggest that they take some time to look at the information. If they have any questions, to give a call. If they are ready to proceed with an application, I assist them with the going through the items. And then I do suggest that they make a choice. They make a choice either to reduce their numbers to 2 children, which they don't need a license to care for 1 or 2 children or a sibling group, or that they become licensed. And for the most part, people are responsive to that.
But licensed operators say obviously unlicensed caregivers aren't responding to Handberg's recommendations, and since there's no penalty for operating illegally, many daycares don't bother getting licenses. Handberg says it's just a matter of time until unlicensed operators become aware that the license costs nothing and the requirements are easily met.
For an average residential home, alterations or renovations are not usually required. For family daycare, you're not required to have a minimum space requirement. The average home or even a trailer is large enough for a family daycare. We would ask that you have a reasonable selection of safe and clean toys for the children. You would need to provide a sleeping area for the children. A fenced outside play area is one item that may need to be built.
What about fire exits, sprinkler systems, fire alarms, water temperature? Is that regulated, or kitchen facilities?
As far as the fire requirements go, we do ask that you have a fire inspection done of your home. At that time, the fire inspector may ask for smoke detectors to be installed. To my knowledge, sprinkler systems and that type of thing is not required.
Some operators disagree, however, and say renovations can be expensive. But it isn't only the cost, according to the Terrace Daycare Center supervisor, Teresa Colton, who says many unlicensed caregivers are intimidated by the whole process.
I think they feel it's an invasion of their privacy. People coming into their home and telling them how they should have it, like the fire safety and just, a fenced yard and that sort of thing. I think people just feel intimidated that way, I think.
Licensing can be very intimidating to someone who has not gone through. We've also talked about in our meetings at daycare workers that if English is not your first language, and there are many, native, different people up here, East Indian, different cultures, multicultural, that their needs are not met when it comes to licensing. There's no one to go. It's very difficult for them to communicate, perhaps. We feel like if we could get together with the people who even want to be licensed, we could help them along. If the government would put money into things like that, they're not going to be intimidated.
We couldn't get an unlicensed daycare operator to comment on camera, but most said their homes and quality of care were perfectly adequate. Many didn't see any reason to get a license, and some said one of the license centers in Terrace appeared to be less clean than their own homes. The center they were referring to was the Calum family daycare, and Supervisor Gail Rowley refused to comment.
What do you think you're doing?
Oh, just taking some pictures.
Oh, I don't want pictures taken, thank you. I already told them that.
Did you say you wouldn't do an interview?
That's right. So, just take it. Yes,
Licensing officer Roseanne Hanberg refused to comment on the Calum family daycare and said she responds to complaints with phone calls, and she's not in the business of closing daycares.
Have we revoked a license? No, we have not. For the most part, once again, once you identify a problem, you go in and talk to an operator. You provide suggestions on how the correction might be done, what needs to be done, and provide a time frame for the compliance to be completed. For the most part, it works, and we haven't needed to revoke a license or close a daycare for non-compliance.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
In 1997, the Quebec government implemented the Quebec Educational Childcare Act as part of their family policy, which included $5 a day childcare, offering access to affordable childcare to families at all levels of income. In this final segment of Open Connection, we look back at the rising cost of childcare in 1989.
Licensed daycare operators say the system has to change if they're to remain in business. They want to raise the daily rate to $16 per child in September, and if they do that, parents may put their children into unlicensed care. But licensed centers can't increase children without increasing staff, so the only way they can raise their income is by a rate increase.
We've had several comments, so you really must be raking it in. If you break it down into what we pay, we must have liability insurance. That's hundreds of dollars a year. We must have equipment. It doesn't run on nothing. We give snacks twice a day to the children. Paper, paint, all those things cost equipment. You can't have the same equipment for years and years and years. You're replacing, it's depreciating. You rent in the building, we lease our building, the utilities, things like that.
The Terrace Daycare Center is run by a non-profit parent board, and Supervisor Teresa Colton says even paying staff minimum wage, the center has never made a profit.
I've had people come in here and once they find out what the hourly rate is or the wage is, they can't do it. Especially if you're a single person, there's no way that you can do it.
How do you manage to survive?
So you'd have to be a good, you mean the daycare center or the staff?
No, the staff.
The staff? Like I said, the majority of actually all of us that work here are married, so our spouses work. If you were a single person, you'd have to plan your budget very carefully.
One of the parents we spoke to had tried both licensed and unlicensed childcare. Overweighty cashier Patty Goff said she finally decided on a licensed center because her 4-year-old son liked it better. He'd come home with new words and new skills, and Goff felt her son was learning more at the licensed center.
He's happy there all day, and he has lots of kids to play with, and he comes home with like new words like metamorphosis and gravity, and knows the meaning of them, and it's just incredible. And even talking to the daycare worker there, Sharon, she just says she can see a tremendous change from when he came last November, this shy little boy that, you know, didn't want to try or do anything, and now he's like a totally different child that's willing to jump in and do things, and I don't know, he just really enjoys himself there. I'd much rather be happy when I'm going to work than be crying my face off all the way to work because I feel so guilty leaving him somewhere he's not happy. So it's like been a big lift of guilt off me having him there. He's no longer hanging off my leg and saying, "Don't leave me, Mommy."
Seemingly unaffected by the child care crisis were the children. Those we spoke to appeared unconcerned about where they were and just happy to be with their friends.
Because it's fun and there's lots to do, and we can run outside and play games and play blocks and do all kinds of things.
I play basketball and I like to do something. It's like school, it's fun. I don't know.
Would you rather stay home or would you rather come here?
Stay home.
What would you do if you stayed home?
I would be bored.
So what do you do when you come here?
Play.
Roseanne Handberg says the final decision on quality childcare is made by parents, and if parents demanded licensed facilities, there'd be more of them.
And when we have customers, the clients who are shopping for the service, more of them asking that question and requesting a license, then we will probably see more licensed spaces available in family daycare.
But for many parents, the issue of licensing isn't important. They may be perfectly happy with the care of family, friend, or neighbors giving their children. At a public meeting discussing the licensing process, it was parents who objected.
Some of the parents came from the unlicensed centers and they were quite upset that their daycare person had to go through this. Like they didn't see why she had to. They were saying, oh, she's been in business for 15 years and she's never had a problem before that. And it was quite an angry meeting.
Fighting the system without the support of area parents has been discouraging for licensed centers, but all admit change will come slowly. Discovery Daycare Supervisor Sharon Bromley says government intervention could solve a lot of the problem.
We were promised so much a couple of years ago. Nothing came through. I don't see any more centers opened. I don't see anyone wanting to open centers.
We've made a lot of progress in the last couple of years because of the amount of social attention, political attention that daycare is getting. The public is acknowledging that childcare is very important work. It's not just babysitting. It's important. It's an important work for us to take into consideration.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind to his heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.